Alright, so we're back for another puzzle session. I believe in the previous video we had a slightly lower rating range. We're bumping that up just a little, sticking with all themes, and see how that goes. So first puzzle of the day, we have some pretty clear themes of weak kings. I find that's quite common in these chess.com puzzles. There's also seemingly a theme of loose pieces. So, for instance, I have, taking stock of the position, I feel there's a bit of urgency in what I do because if I give black some moves, maybe my king comes under fire. Like, I don't see exactly what I do as black to checkmate me right away, but, if we were to maybe start with check and then do some sort of sacrifice to drag the queen away for this check, it might be very unfortunate to discover that I'm actually getting mated myself because I've unprotected this crucial pawn. So if I want to make an idea like I just showed work with check and then having this check with the discovered attack on the queen, seems like I should just take this knight. And it looks pretty strong. If queen takes, then we have the exact scenario that I was talking about. We can calculate a few lines there. First of all, if king comes to the corner, we probably don't even, well, yeah, we probably do take the queen. There's not the smothered mate idea of here, check, king comes back, knight comes here, double check, king comes back to the corner or to f8. But at the end of the line, we won't have a smothered mate here because of this rook being able to take the knight. So in a scenario where takes, queen check, king here, the best we can really hope for is just to go knight here, king comes back, then we just take the queen. And then that should leave us with the queen and rook versus two rooks. That should be winning. So the other line we have to calculate right away is what if king here? Well, that one seems, after takes, queen check, king here. That one seems a bit easier. We could win the queen again with the, we can't even win the queen there because the queen can take. But what I was going to say anyways, so all these moves are inserted. It looks like we actually have checkmate here on the king. King is completely cut off. So far this is looking pretty promising. Another move we have to calculate is what if they try to interpose with the rook, so that we have queen takes, king here. Now at least black isn't losing their rook, or isn't losing their queen. Our rook is attacked. We are currently up a knight, though, and I get the impression that we should have something strong. At the very least, rook f1, which threatens back rank mates, so there's no time to take this knight for black. Do I have anything stronger there? Just out of curiosity. Takes here, take. So like there's no more discovery. The queen's not here. The queen's actually on this square. Probably rook f1 seems best. And then I can save my knight. And I should be able to escape checks, at least by playing rook f2 or something, if queen checks on e3. I'm not worried about the pin, because if black were ever to take our knight, then the pin is broken, and then we could give our back rank mate. So far, so good. After takes, the only other thing that I really wanted to look at was what if queen takes pawn, the very least I might have king takes rook. Wait, sorry, what am I talking about? Takes, so if takes pawn, the knight's not even gone yet. Changes things quite dramatically. Then I should have so many good moves. At the very least there I would have queen block, but probably also rook block and then followed. Yeah, so I think just take the knight here, and then I have my move rook f1 prepared. Okay, again, the rook was attacked, so we saved the rook with tempo, then we can save our knight. So let's move on to the next one. I see less of a weak king theme here. Now I'm seeing more of a, maybe there are some ideas to win a piece kind of thing, or rather takes followed by f6 seems pretty strong. White can't escape with check. Is that just the solution here? Just to go knight takes knight followed by f6? Because if you take in between, we just take with the rook. Queen is hit, and the queen can't take the knight. And yeah, rook takes, we have f6. It seems really straightforward. So we found that pretty fast. It looks very convincing, but in that situation I always get a bit nervous that I've missed something simple. So I'm going to look at it one more time. If I take his knight, we looked at, well, like if queen takes, we just take the bishop. So if rook takes, we play f6, and there's no check to escape the fork. So here, and if bishop takes, we take with the rook. And I don't see what white does there. There's not even a move for white to, keep an eye on the rook so that when the knight moves, they can maybe take, because both of these squares are covered by the knight that would be existing on e4. Okay, and this is the same thing. Now let's not take the bishop and drop our queen. That's a shocking rating for that puzzle, in my opinion. Okay, there is a little more of a weak king theme just because of the absence of pieces on the back rank. That being said, I'm not really sure how we're meant to exploit that here. We don't have any piece immediately on an open line. So just thinking about the themes of the puzzle, we might have to do something quite fast because our queen is attacked. There's a lot of pressure on e5. I think those are going to be the themes of this puzzle, dealing with that. So the back rank theme, imagine we were to go queen takes knight, and rook takes, and then rook takes. It appears to me that we're then attacking the queen and threatening a mate. So even if black were to guard the mate, we would be able to play rook check, queen would block, we would take the queen. Seems like we're just going up a piece because we get these two pieces for, well, we would get these three pieces for these two pieces. This is quite convincing also because it removes the attack on our queen. If we were to go rook takes, I think the problem is that after rook takes, there's knight takes queen. And if we go here, the queen is no longer attacked, so white has time to do something. either maybe defend like this, maybe not, because things could get, well, we'd have to calculate if the bishop could even go there. But at the very least, it looks like, white could make some escape for the king, and the queen's no longer in danger. So the problem with rook takes is knight here, and then rook takes, and then knight can remove itself, and in that case it would be these two pieces for these two pieces, which is losing the exchange. So again, queen takes knight looks convincing because of the follow-up. White has no check follow-up, and we have a threat of mate and on the queen. So sorry, pardon my phone buzzing there. So that seemed straightforward as well. Alright, next puzzle. Well, this is clearly an exposed king theme, since we're in the process of running the king out. How convenient would it be if we could just play bishop g5, or at least threaten bishop g5? f4 looks quite strong as well. Basically, I'm just looking at moves that give check, give closer to that checkmate. This one comes with the threat of f4 takes e5 with the rook uncovered. So we do have to keep in mind we did give up something to get this position. Seems like we're only down in exchange though, because we do have actually, no, sorry, that is 3 pieces versus 3 pieces. We're down a rook for this position, so what we do has to be somewhat decisive. And it looks like our queen's not participating in this fight. We're just too far away. So yeah, do something speedy. Well, the first thing to calculate would be bishop g5. Of course, we should calculate that first because it's a one move, one response kind of deal, and if it were to work, then we would want to have calculated it. The problem seems to be quite easy to see in that white has no follow-up. There's not even a knight f3, f4. At the very least, the black king could come back, but probably just take. And the queen can't jump in. Bishop g5 doesn't seem like it's doing anything important. Next thing I want to calculate just quickly is h4 because it has a one move checkmate threat, which is a bit more severe than whatever this is doing. h4. So either, well, and it's maybe if we're not getting checkmate, like if they block here to make a space for the king, we're at least picking up the queen. So that's actually, yeah, pretty severe. And again, if the bishop drops back, then we are picking up the queen, which would be good enough as a solution. So black probably wants to guard the square, maybe by playing knight f7. And in that event, if we were just to take the knight, then probably king takes. And the king seems to be escaping. Even if we were to bring our queen in at that point, they could block that check. So do I have a solution for knight here? I could then play f4. Seems maybe even a little more severe than the immediate f4, because when we take, it's going to be with some sort of rook takes knight threat, some skewer against the king and knight. So h4 is pretty promising, and I don't see what else black does. There's no other way to make an escape square. If the queen moves, it doesn't make an escape square because we're going to hit this diagonal. If the pawn moves, we still win the queen. If the knight moves, we still win the queen. So if the knight moves here, and then we might have f4. So let's look at the immediate f4. And we have this variation in the back of our mind that it could be a potential improvement on immediate f4 because my intended follow-up after knight f7 is still f4 because I can't see another way to get a piece into the action. So after f4, there it seems like black could play bishop f8, takes, and then hide the king. We don't have rook f7 because of the knight, but if we were to take that knight, then the king could take it, and then we don't have rook f7. It might still be kind of strong to get a rook in on the back rank, but maybe we have better. So after f4, if he even takes, well no, that looks pretty dangerous. We would probably play bishop takes, because after rook takes and king e5, oh sorry, after rook takes king e5 we have a mate. So never mind. If f4 and takes, we definitely take with the rook, which seems to win on the spot. You'd have to play knight f4, knight f5, because otherwise you're getting some sort of discovered attack where you're getting mated. So here, 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 here. Pawn takes, then there's queen takes bishop. Or instead, here, 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 check. King moves up attacking the rook. There's no bishop back because now the knight's unpinned. And there's no taking because now we take the bishop. So yeah, I'm not liking immediate f4 because of this knight interposing. But by inserting h4, knight f7 first, then f4 becomes stronger. There's no more knight f5, and the threat after we make a safety square for the king is stronger because we can really play rook f7. So I'm going to play h4 and then f4 and then take and then take. Okay, so far so good on these puzzles, and we end the day with an endgame puzzle. So some things to note here. One, it's always good to know which way your pawns are running. So in this case, white's running to the top, black's running to the bottom. This is a rook and pawn endgame, so I start to think about what I know about rook and pawn endgames. Mate isn't happening anytime soon. It is kind of important that black's king is cut off, and ours is not. So maybe we end up leaving this rook here. If we could just win this pawn, then that should be a winning endgame. I think this should devolve into the so-called Lucena endgame, because there's enough space. Eventually we would get our king would be here. I'll use different colors. Our pawn would be here. The rook would be behind the pawn. Black's rook would be behind the pawn somewhere, so that whenever we stepped out, we'd be given check. And then white would bring the rook up so that the king could step over. The rook gives check, the king steps up, the rook gives check, and then the rook interferes. And that's the basic Lucena premise. And because this king is still cut off, it can't reach in time to stop the promotion. So with all those ideas in mind, my question is, how do I win this pawn? If I just go here, maybe it's actually a bit funny to me that this last move appears to be rook here to here. And what would have happened if rook came here instead and attacked our pawn? We have no way of defending that. We'd have to go move forward, and then the rook would step here. And that might be easier for black to draw. So like if we still come here, king to d2, and then black changes their idea and plays here, we're not in time to defend our pawn still, so we have to push it. This is fine to push it because if black just keeps checking, if black keeps attacking from the side, we're going to keep pushing and we're gonna queen. So instead, we meet this with rook guarding the pawn, and then probably black's king comes in, and that's awkward. So we need to change our plan. Perhaps here, but then we lose our Lucena idea. So perhaps we could push right away, a move I didn't even consider at the onset. Pardon the background noise. If we push right away, this looks pretty convincing because now if rook comes from the side here and rook steps behind, not in time because of rook f8, and then we queen. If here, and then rook stops our pawn, then we have to figure out what we want to do. Which could be check. Oh, this is getting interesting, actually. There's a lot of tactics about just promoting this pawn. I completely overlooked these ideas at the onset, trying to do something more simply about winning this pawn. So after, let's say, okay, so let's reconsider the candidate moves. This is a candidate move. This is a candidate move. The idea behind something like this might be that if check and king comes up and we push our pawn here, and maybe we could push. Unfortunately, black's king is now in time, so maybe go here. If block, then we could give check. If the rook blocked and we took and went here, black is not in time. So after here, here, check, king steps up, rook comes to e8. The idea is that we want to play rook e7. And if the rook were to come to d7, then we could give check. Takes, takes, and the king is here, so the king is not in time to stop us. So after here, here, check, here, rook e8, the king will have to step closer, maybe to g6. But then we give check again on e6. The king can't step here because then we will get the rook. If the king steps further away, then we can still come here, and even if rook trades, black will be behind our pawn. So that's actually looking more and more convincing. I don't think black can play rook to g7. But if black can't play rook to g7, then how do they stop the pawn? Check, we can step over. Yeah, I think this is just winning. Check. Oh no, I've missed something. You could. I hear my hesitated shock. I missed something. What did I miss? I really thought this was impossible. Oops. So if this is impossible, and then we come here, and then we come here, how is white stopping this idea? White and black can't step back. Black can't block. Black can't go here. Oh, maybe they can. Maybe king g6 here, and then rook to g8. I didn't think about rook to g8, because then they can step in front. I miscalculated. So instead, I mean, I could just pick up this pawn. Oh my gosh, is there some really clever idea with check, check, king here, rook here, takes, and promote? I missed that. Okay. We got that one wrong. In the end, we figured out the theme. It's a really sneaky idea. I like that puzzle. Anyways, those are the 5 puzzles for today. Hopefully this was instructive. I'll have to sleep on that last one, and I'll try again in this rating range in a future day, since I didn't get them all right.